2 hours later, I got the call. We're making a change.
Yeah, you just said fire.
Huh?
Okay, so this story has been blowing up all over social media after Stephen A. Smith went on the Joe Budden podcast and began dropping some bombshells. So far, I've made a couple videos about how Stephen A. said that Shannon did not leave undisputed, but rather he was pushed out. But now another segment from this podcast is making the rounds, and it involves his old First Take co-host Max Kellerman. After Skip Bayless departed ESPN in 2016 to start Undisputed, Max took over his spot and enjoyed 5 successful years with Stephen A. Smith, where they dominated the morning sports debate show slots. However, in 2021, Max was relieved of his duties on ESPN's flagship show and relegated to doing his radio show on the network and a new morning program with Keyshawn Johnson and Jay Williams. Then after parent company Disney faced some struggles, Max and his $5 million salary was cut after massive layoffs from all sectors of the business. And since then, Stephen A. Smith has been going on different podcasts over the last few years, has been always open about the situation and the firing of Max from First Take. And if I'm going to be honest, the way Smith has been talking about Max's exit has been really disrespectful in my opinion. However, this recent interview from the Joe Budden podcast, the ESPN star, I think just went too far with some of the stuff he was saying, and a lot of people on social media were criticizing him for these comments. Anyways, here's the clip.
What do you say to the people that say they saw the tension between you and Max developing on air before his departure from the show? Did you hear any of that?
I heard some of it. I would take full responsibility for that. That's totally my fault.
Okay.
And the reason why it was my fault, because I didn't like working with him, man. It's just that damn simple. I didn't like it. I thought the show was stale. I thought that we had flatlined when it came to the public at large, and I'm trying to win. I mean, I didn't want to go from number 1 to number 2 when Skip left. That's not what I wasn't having that. That shit was not going to happen.
Did anything in the numbers say that you might have been headed that way?
No, but to me it did.
Creatively?
To me it did, not just creatively, but the consistency of the number.
Got it.
In other words, it wasn't going this way.
Yeah.
It was just there.
It was just there.
Like you flattened out.
And not only that, it's like us being in this room right now. Come on, y'all. Y'all know the difference between something that's stale and something you pumped up for. You just know.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I was feeling. And it was like, you know, listen, I had mad respect from him from the standpoint that white dude, highly intelligent, Ivy League educated from Columbia, smart as a whip, can talk his ass off, can talk about anything. And I get all of that. But you weren't an athlete and you weren't a journalist. And the absence of the two components left people wondering, why should we listen to you? Okay, well, you might have had that figured out on Sports Nation, or you might have had that figured out on another show. But on this show, if you looked at the content emanating in the social stratosphere, meaning YouTube and other components that you use to measure one's cachet, Q ratings, focus groups, all of these different things, it was like I was damn near doing the show by myself because we were oceans apart in terms of cachet. Well, how are you oceans apart from me if you sitting right across from me 5 days a week for the whole 2 hours? Because one of us is resonating and one of us is not in that platform. And so for me, I was like, look, this is what it is. And we had a number of conversations, one-on-one, many, many times. I know this audience. I know what they're looking for. I know what they need, et cetera, et cetera. At some point, you're going to do what you need to do or you don't. And if you don't do what you need to do, I'm going to get somebody who will. That's me, and I made no qualms about it. Now, I didn't have the authority to let him go.
But you have coffee with the person that...
How about that? I mean? How about that? And so what I did was, I've been very honest and very consistent about it. There's nothing personal. We weren't enemies or anything. To be real, we ain't spoke since, other than hi and bye. You know, or if I had to go on the show when they were doing the morning show, I would get interviewed. But there's been no conversations since, and that's fine with me. That's no problem, because it wasn't like we were boys or anything like that. But at the end of the day, it was all business to me. And it was about, look, man, I'm trying to win. And I don't believe I can win with you. That doesn't mean it's your fault. It means we don't work. So when I went upstairs to management, my exact words were, look, if he's that important to you, give him first take. I'll leave.
Stephen A.
So there's a lot to unpack here. I don't know, was it just me or was Stephen A. Smith being a bit disrespectful in your opinion? I get the pair didn't have much of a relationship outside of work. That's actually somewhat normal. There's no way we're all going to get along on a personal level with coworkers, and I have no problems with Stephen A. saying that he didn't like working with Max. That's just the way he felt, but some of the other stuff he said I think really had some fans looking at him a little sideways. During Max's tenure at ESPN, the show did not grow, but pretty much flatlined, and I guess Stephen A. Smith was expecting the show to grow more. Mind you, they just lost Skip Bayless, who was a ratings behemoth. Many could have thought the show would have declined in numbers after Skip's departure, so I guess it depends on how you look at it. The ratings for First Take the past couple weeks with Shannon Sharpe on the show has hit over 700,000 viewers, which is about double their average audience, but I would take those numbers with a grain of salt. Shannon has been out of action and his long-awaited return to TV was much anticipated. Also, the Deion Sanders effect has really given ESPN a boost in ratings as of late. Anyways, let's get to some of the disrespectful parts from the interview. Stephen A. complimented Max as a bright, articulate Ivy Leaguer, but then weirdly criticizes the fact that Max was not an athlete nor a journalist. Does anyone watch Stephen A. on First Take for his journalism skills? I don't even understand where he was going with that. The show is pretty much a performative act, and in my opinion, I think Stephen A. Smith had more of an issue with Max Kellerman not acting up for the audience. First Take's primary target audience is Black Americans, and it doesn't take a genius to see the show's formula for success. Just take a look at Undisputed when it first started and to what it became, especially Shannon Sharpe and how his persona evolved over time on the show. I'm gonna play you a clip of another sports show that has been taking the industry by storm as of late. It's something that I've been watching over the past couple months, and that would be Cameron and Mace's It Is What It Is on YouTube. This show has done very well, drawing a few 100,000 views per episode, so well that it just inked a $30 million sponsorship deal with Underdog Fantasy. Anyways, listen to what Cameron said about shows like First Take and Undisputed and their formula, and you'll kinda understand why Max Kellerman was removed from the show.
Because in his brain, he's like, do more nigga shit. Do more nigga shit. Do more nigga shit, yeah. Let's bring the niggas in. Let's bring the niggas in. That's what Skip Bayless does, and I think that he's seen his ratings skyrocket once he got Stephen A. on the show. Then he seen how much people love Shannon Sharpe once he got Shannon Sharpe on the show.
We're gonna go even blacker this time.
Yeah.
We're gonna bring the hood.
Yeah.
It might be a bandana on it.
Yeah. Young Money.
I think what Cam and May said right here is indicative of what the formula to success for debate shows are like. And seeing the success It Is What It Is has had in the last 6 months, these debate shows are even trying to copy Cam and Mace.
You came hard. Okay.
For the most part, Cam and Mace's show does really well because of the comedic chemistry these two have together. And that's what these morning debate shows try to do. Think about all the viral clips of these personas on social media. They're just mostly all funny memes that have circulated around the internet, but this is what attracts eyeballs to their shows. One part that struck me as odd for Stephen A. Smith to say was when he said he felt like he was doing the show all by himself because he and Max were 2 worlds apart from talent, so to speak. And I guess this goes to my earlier point of what Stephen A. wanted. He wanted someone who could do a performance, a showmanship. If you look at the rotation of co-hosts he's brought into First Take, they're mainly guys who have big personalities and will say anything. Like, take a look at this segment from Mad Dog, just going wild here, talking about the bromance between Stephen A. and Shannon Sharpe. Can you ever picture Max doing a segment like this? Probably not. Anyways, I guess all this came to a boiling point when Max wasn't going to bend the knee and Stephen A. Smith basically gave ESPN an ultimatum. It was either Max or him, and they stuck with him. That said, I understand he was just speaking his truth, but it came off as disrespectful at times during the interview. So while it appears Stephen A. had issues with Max's approach to the show, many real OG First Take fans think this was the moment Stephen A. turned on Max after his black card got called into question.
Mentioned obviously Max is going to get in here, and like I said, I'm in the streets. Max almost seems blacker than you, Stephen A. with what he's coming, with this.
Anyways, what do you guys think? Was Stephen A. Smith fair or foul for his criticism of Max, or was Max treated unfairly?